Ready, set, up your geek.
Welcome to Up Your Geek podcast. I'm here with Jennifer Smith from Rat Dance Party. Jennifer Smith is, of course, a music supervisor, producer on the upcoming Hollow's Ben, which stars James Marsters, who you may know from Buffy fame as Spike. So, Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about Hollow's Ben and where the idea of this came from?
Sure. So Hollow's Bend is right now, it is a radio play. So think of, in the 50s when you used to turn on the radio. Of course, we weren't alive in the 50s. You turn on the radio and it was kind of a full play in the audio context. So I worked with these two amazing writers, Abigail Reed and Rachel Quinn, who wrote and came up with this idea and adapted it for the audio media, since it's such a beautiful storytelling mechanism. And it's the story of a trapped spirit named Andres, who discovers a loophole that allows spirits to possess the teenagers of the town that he accidentally possesses the new girl in town, Gemma. And Gemma and her friends, Luke, Dels, Angelica, and Damon, are playing with a Ouija board, right? We all know Ouija boards, they're fun, but, you got to be a little careful. So before Andres could stop them, playing with this Ouija board, one of the spirits named Ramses takes control of Dels. And in order to put a stop to the corrupt higher-ups in the town, this town is a mining town. He wants to put a stop to the corrupt higher-ups in the town. There's this mining source called a Miriam that's in the town. So Miriam kind of has this different power. So he's torn between wanting to be free of the spirit realm, but also he has the urge to protect the residents of this small town called Hollow's Bend. So Andres must do his best to help the teenagers stop Ramsey from freeing her followers and wreaking havoc on this small town. So it's kind of a fun, think about Breakfast Club and Buffy, type of story. And of course, it's for the young adult audience. So we have a little bit of that 80s kind of nostalgic humor. We have the different archetypes that everyone in high school, I was the theater nerd in high school, of course, you have the jock, you have all this. But what's great about this one is everyone's friends, right? It's like kind of a mishmash group of friends that maybe you wouldn't see in a traditional 80s archetype. That's why it's more on the Breakfast Club, about how different people from different social circles kind of come together. The new girl, they're like doing this mystery with this town that has like this history. It's like, what is this, a Miriam? We have, of course, a little bit of political problems, because it is a mining town, power grabs, greed, all these different things. So it's a really fun story that has a lot of characters that audiences can relate to of all ages, which really attracted me, because I think the current content right now for young adults is only at a certain type of person, right? When I was in high school, I wasn't, doing drugs and having, making those decisions that a lot of content on TV as well in the audio space, there's no space for families to enjoy young adult things together and have those conversations, as well as people having an opportunity to say, that's me. Right now, the content out there says there's something wrong with you if you're, 12 to whatever age, if you don't do drugs, if you don't have a decision to take your relationship to the next level. So this kind of fits. I saw a hole missing in content and storytelling. So I feel like this really fits that gives different audiences an opportunity to say, I see myself, and it's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with me that I don't party, that I want to go read a book. There's nothing wrong with me that I'm friends with the jock, even though maybe I'm the weird theater nerd like myself, or, love comic books, right? I know comic books are cool now, but, we ebb and flow. So that's what really drove me to this story, and just the different characters, and just the world we live in is a little bit different. So I was excited to be part of a team that kind of gave a space for people that don't have a space.
That's a great rundown of this particular program. You said something about the the description of the character and what his decision is. And we sometimes see this when someone has this choice, and it's a moral choice versus personal choice. Like, if I am I going to be selfish here, do this, or I see something wrong happening, and then I could end all of my issues or problems, or I could make myself happy in this way, or I could right this wrong. And it seems like that's what that character is doing when he notices his friend gets possessed.
Yeah, it's definitely brings up different things about what is selfish, what is selfless, and some of the decisions the character makes someone might think is selfish, but sometimes they're selfless. So it brings up the conversation about the blending of different morality as well as choices that we make in our life. And sometimes those choices, they don't seem, huge, but they actually are huge, and has a ripple effect as well.
I love that type of concept. And also, it does lend a message to those young adults who might be listening to this program, or get into it, that, it's good because there's an underlying message here. And then you can see that. And sometimes it makes people in real life think about things. This kind of reminds me of some particular situation, or they might be able to relate to the actions of the protagonist in the story.
Yeah, and also, everyone can relate being a new person in a small town. I'm in Los Angeles, and you meet new people all the time, and you still have that new person energy about how do you connect with these different people, all these different things. Are you coming back home? Maybe you left for a little while and now you're coming back home and you're an entirely different person, which also is addressed in this because the family moves back from the town the mother grew up in. So we deal with a lot of different things that, are what everyone deals with. It doesn't matter if you're in a small town or a big city, all those emotions and all those different fears or those different doubts, they come up with you. You're going to an event for the first time, maybe you are overwhelmed. It's just everyone has those feelings regardless of your background, where you're located, all those human feelings and human connections.
These type of programs, they always have this there is this real human feeling, but it's so I guess artistically tragic, where this particular story, this gentleman wants to be free.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's urged to protect the people of this town, and it's like, do I get that freedom, or do I stay this way forever, in order to save these other people?
Yeah, and also grew up watching Scooby-Doo. It kind of has that Scooby-Doo effort about we gotta solve the mystery, friends, getting together. All these people grew up together. They all love each other, even when they're being teenagers and being like, oh, leave me alone, you're annoying me. They all, there's still a message of love and friendship and community, and decisions and all those different things that they do exist in current content, but it's not the same as using your imagination. What I love about the audio space, it's such a beautiful storytelling mechanism, kind of like reading a book, where you have these ideas of these characters and what you might imagine, say, Dell's looking like, is going to be very different than something else. And you're going to identify with each character a little bit differently. And you're going to think about your own life. Maybe you put a face in your mind as you're going through this journey, trying to solve this mystery. Why is the Miriam so important? What is the cause of it? What happens if it goes away? What happens if these spirits, they possess the town? Is it just the town, or are they going to take over the world? You have this amazing imagination that goes through, and use your brain and use your mind and also your own personal experiences to put together a beautiful story in there. And that's what I love about audio. It creates a different storytelling mechanism. I also love film and TV because I work in film and TV, but all of them are so different and similar in different ways and connect with audiences very differently.
They do. The medium is great. I love the audio because of that reason. You can imagine these people being anyone. You can put faces. You can. They give you a description of a scene, and you can kind of draw that out in your mind of what it looks like and what they look like talking to each other or interacting. And And I find myself doing that, doing even if I'm doing audiobooks, podcasts, and you're listening, even if you've never seen the person before. And many of these people here, you've seen in real life, but sometimes you don't. It escapes, and you put your own face and
Hmm.
to these characters, and it's that actually makes the experience that much better when you're listening to it. This story kind of reminds me of that torn. If you've ever seen Casper,
Hmm.
when he had to make that choice of he's going to give up his chance to be human to save her father.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there exactly. I think it's great that you can find different things in your own life that you can put with this. And what's really great about this radio play is also we have such a diverse cast, right? We have upcoming, talent that maybe wasn't given an opportunity before. It was really fun working with even some, name talent that have never worked in the audio space and them saying, thank you for this opportunity. I learned a lot and became a better actor. And I'm going to take what I learned in this to apply to my craft, which made me really excited as well, because it's all about, the craft of entertainment and storytelling. Also, what makes our podcast or our radio play actually unique is we incorporate the diversity also within the school. For example, I had two actors that were really excited that there was authentic Spanish in our scripts, and we have Spanish in the background. So as the students are walking through, you also hear the texture of the diversity of the town. You hear Spanish in the background, you hear English. And both of the actors got really touched that they had scenes together where they're both of that culture, and that they were able to communicate together in Spanish and have that moment as a friendship. But also they said it really touched them that they could have that level, and also both of them understood and what that meant from them on a cultural aspect as well. They've never seen that in a script before. And then I said, yes, we're also going to, in the sound design phase, we kept, when I was recording, I said, okay, I just need this, start talking in the background in your character. I need some Spanish, all this, because in the audio space, you have to build a world off audio. You can't just see a school. You have to feel the school. The listener has to feel the school, feel the culture, feel the texture. Are the shoes, does Gemma wear sneakers? Does Angelica wear heels? What are those different things and textures? So as a listener, and you hear someone walk up, you're like, oh, Gemma's coming. Oh, is that Dell's? Oh, look at Damon. Look at his self. I can see him coming up as the jock. So it's really fun to build that texture and that environment after we're done recording and post-production. That's the most fun for me, at least. um, what's really great is working with both these young writers. This is the first time that the world is going to hear their writing in public. They're very talented. They are upcoming in the industry. So also to give a platform for someone to give a story, to have their story out in the world without being famous, without, coming from, a fame or money or any of those things that a lot of people have over other people, was really exciting about working with young writers and really seeing their talent and giving them a platform, saying, we can get this out there. I said, the world needs to hear your storytelling mechanism. Let's do it.
I think the sound space is so unique, and sometimes I feel like it may be a little difficult more to do that space than visually. Something you see is visually stunning, but in the sound space, you have to make the listener feel all of these
Mm-hmm.
things, and if they can't see them, which is
Yes.
why I think it's so unique. And I think that the people that work in the sound space are extraordinarily talented,
Yeah.
yourself
And
included. It's just it is.
yeah, it makes sense for the visual media. I'm a music supervisor, so the sonic storytelling through music and sound. So it was just a natural progression for me to get into the producing in the audio space to create sonic landscapes between sound design, pacing, working with actors and everything, especially from my theater background. That's what I love about it, is you get to bring out a lot of that stuff I've been doing since, I was a child,
Yeah.
which is always amazing.
That's awesome. So this, speaking of the cast here, we have James Marsters, who
Hmm.
of course, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, George Sear, Paul Johannsson, two people might know from One Tree Hill. Jan Luis Castellanos, right? He's played in 13 Reasons Why.
He plays Damien. What I love about working with him is I mean, everyone on this project was just so wonderful to work with and really uh, engaged, and they let their fears go. They've never worked in the sonic space before, and I said, I know you're going to feel funny, and we just turn off the camera. I said, no cameras, right? And as an actor, you can't rely on the visual media. And they even said, I didn't realize how much I relied
Yeah.
on the visual media to act, and we just have to drag everything out. And my director, um, Anna Von Halen, she was amazing working with these actors to get them out of their comfort zone to give the best performance. Jean-Louis, he brings a new light to Damien, who's the jock. It's not your traditional jock. He added amazing layers to this character. And to be honest, I think it pushed him more because there was no visual media.
I think, and we have some really, there's some really talented people in here. So this is also produced by Rachel Quinn and Abigail Reed,
Who are the writers? Yes.
who are the writers and creators of this. And so, what was it like putting this project together and
So
getting the voices for it?
Yeah, so I met Rachel and Abigail at a Women in Media event. This was pre-COVID. And we just kind of connected on a human level, and we built this amazing friendship as well as partnership to create content together. So they had originally written Hollows Bend. This is their creative vision, their child. I'm just here to help bring it to life and to support it, to make it the best it can be. And it's, for them, it was taking something and thinking about how to write for audio, having to work with them to how to write for the sonic space, and having to change the story, or not change the story, but adapt it to this medium versus a visual medium. So I think it also helped them on a writing perspective to go through this exercise as well. There are definitely some voices that are upcoming that are going to be amazing. So Rachel and Abby are these amazing upcoming writers that have a really great perspective and voice. And they are definitely someone to watch for. They're also amazing actresses as well. But I really love the way they write and how they can write not only stories that you can identify with, but also they're very in tune to what's going on currently, as well as the future, about what's missing in the space, as well as capturing these characters that anyone can relate to, which really identified with me as well.
So the music supervision that goes behind doing, let's say, a show or a film, is there a difference in how you operate with film versus audio?
Oh, they're very different. They don't a lot of the skill sets do transfer over, but you have to be able to understand the audio space. So music supervision with visual media, we are creating, the story, the characters, all this, but it has to bend with the picture, right? The music has to elevate and bend with the picture. You don't, edit picture to music, because the music accompanies, it adds texture, it adds layers, it adds environment, it adds everything. So it's a little bit different in the visual media. But for audio, music is a different tool. Not only does it have to give you environment and character and storytelling, it can't overpower the words, right? So if, my character's talking about like, oh, we're, in this small town, the music has to add layers to it. So if we're in, say, a small town like this, and maybe it's dark, the town might be a little having problems, right? Stores are closing. People have lived there their entire lives. There's not a lot of new people moving here. It's a very secluded area. That sonically is going to sound different than if you have picture. So you have to really think about the music and the sound as also the picture. What does this one note say? Does that say dark? Does that say destitute? Does it say bright? So you have to think about music in a much different way than you do with picture, because you could have an amazing song, but if you have the picture, you can't have juxtaposition in the same way. can't have like a dark, dusty town and then some like upbeat, bright song, because as a viewer, yeah, maybe it adds to the comedy or it adds to something, but you know what that is because you can see things. But in audio, the audience member, they're the cinematographer, they're the director, they're everything in their own mind. So you kind of have to help them come up with this imagination, right? Is the sound of, of a train going by, is this like a happy town? Are we going to be, is it bright outside? Is it dark outside?
Yeah.
Is it raining? But is it raining and it's with a rainbow and it's happy? So you have the pitter patter and something a little bit bright and sunny and full. It's a very different way of storytelling, but it still has a lot of the same things because you have to understand how music affects emotion, affects different things the same way. And also when you have people, again, in a visual media, I can see that someone's walking, they might have a Birkin bag, someone's walking and they're driving this type of car, and that can add to it. But again, in the audio thing, it's very different. It's very textured. It's intentional. In audio, everything is intentional. In visual media, you can add comedy, you can add emotion, because you might see this beautiful scene of two characters finally meeting together for the first time, and you have a song that, or a score that you help put together that evokes emotion, that extra emotion with that actor's performance, right? You don't have that in audio. So a lot of things transfer over, but you have to keep switching your brain. Is this visual storytelling, music and sound, or is this audio storytelling, music and sound? It's very fun. It's like a puzzle, and you just become this, you have this amazing imagination.
I would think also working in both mediums would make you a much more skilled person.
Yeah.
In that genre.
Yeah, I love both mediums. I love visual storytelling with music, and I love the sound of the audio space. I think they're both equally important storytelling mediums.
Well, I always call back to one of your the Deadly Illusions film. Yeah. We spoke about it before, but it was the nursery rhymes and the background with the songs playing in the scenes. It's like that is an intentional, and it's kind of sinister too in that scene, in those scenes, and it's like, oh, you can hear it if you're really listening to it, or if you paying attention, because a lot of times some people aren't even paying attention. And I'm someone that like kind of goes and I'm listening to the themes. Mm-hmm. In each of the scenes, because then if there's a film with a killer, when the killer's around.
Exactly, and it's just fun. I know we talked about this before, but I love finding Sonic Easter eggs. So I'll try to put little Sonic Easter eggs, and sometimes you can find them and sometimes you can't. But that's just my little fun game of storytelling, because every project has its own unique story, characters, sounds. You work with this, with different amazing teams that. It's also kind of fun to put those little things in there that's in line with someone's vision, but also, that's kind of my, if I can, again, each project's unique and different. Yeah. I'll try to put those little Easter eggs in that kind of give a little, nod to maybe a character or an environment or different things, different projects are different, which is always fun for me, just to bring someone's vision to life and to support it and to give life to these characters and these stories, and really respect the different mediums of storytelling.
Yeah, look, I really enjoy just kind of getting that story from you can tell a story with just sound. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the most amazing things was when I was actually able to see like behind the scenes on how some of the films are made. People don't realize that everything in that scene could be something that's produced by people who are working in that space. It's, the actors are speaking, but someone's creating the sound of the coffee coming out of the machine, or the coffee cup landing on the table, the footsteps. And I'm like, yeah, they're like the camera. The microphone doesn't catch all that.
Oh, no. Post-production is such a beautiful it really brings everything to life. And it also can change the story, because if you're only given so much and you're working there, you're like, oh no, we need to add this because we didn't get it, or it wasn't filmed right, or it wasn't captured properly. The art is in post, whether it's visual or also audio, because you're just, and especially in audio, you're actually creating the story.
Yeah.
You're the ones that putting together the pacing, you're creating the texture, you're, listening to the different performances and having to put it together. I mean, I did the assembly for the entire podcast, for the radio play of pacing it out and working with an amazing sound designer at Post Up Audio. Him and I have worked together for many years in the visual media. He's one of the top sound people for in the business, and he just started his own company called Post Up Audio, and he's so great to work with, and he really understands the sonic storytelling space, which I find that if you've never worked in sound, and including editing, it's hard to understand why something's so important and why it just needs to go there. And we met working on a Viacom show, and we just built this amazing working relationship, and he's my go-to call for anything I need. If I need a mixer, if I need a sound designer, because we can talk about, we have these crazy conversations, or, especially in Hollows Bend, okay, it's a small mining town, there's weather. So let's talk about what's the sound of this school. Obviously there's snow, so can't be wood, because, there's kids running in and out all day. Okay, this town, has the school been updated? What kind of shoes? Like, we have these conversations in depth, about maybe what kind of leaves are there, really trying to give a location to the listeners, because a leaf on the West Coast sounds different than leaf on the East Coast, right? Because of the weather, what's going on, what time of year is it? With the kids running, were they up all night studying? Were they up all night at a game or practice? What kind of are they slug? We have these in-depth conversations about the characters and the story and the environment just to come up with the sneaker.
That's amazing, and that's what I mean by the talent that goes into or the talent that you bring to it, and what you develop working on these things, because that's why I think that it's so important for these stories to get out, so people can understand like the amount of work that kind of goes into creating the entertainment for others to take in.
Exactly. Also, just like on the music standpoint, we're talking about characters. I'm like, what type of music would, Malcolm listen to, right? We're in his office. We need to give him a sound. And I talk to the writers about this, because this is their baby. And we talk about the characters. When you were writing them, tell me a little bit what you were thinking of. Did this character grow up with money? Did this character have access and exposure to maybe live theater? Are they into opera? Are they into classical? Are they into rock? Are they into pop? Are they into hip hop? Like, I ask all these questions just so, okay, they walk in, she's listening to a record before maybe her mother walks in, right? But I want to know from this character, when you were writing her, what was your backstory? What were you thinking of? Just for, maybe a 10-second, 5-second music drop. But to me, that's important, because it adds, not only is it bring the writer's vision to life, but for me, it gives the audience member, a more experience with this character, because maybe this character listens to opera and this character listens to classical. I know some people would just be like, oh, it's music playing, but for me, it builds to the characters and adds dimension to them, which is so much fun for me.
It adds great depth to the characters, and it's actually a lot of what people look for when they're, especially in the audio space, because you don't have a visual aid. So it's great to have those things to build these characters. It gives you an idea.
And I have these conversations in the visual media with the writers, with the director, with whoever I'm working with. We have these conversations. What is your vision? When you wrote this, what were you envisioning? Okay, why do you like this music? What do you love about it? What don't you like about it? What does it give you? Is there an emotion? Oh, this was your favorite song as a child. Okay, we just have these conversations, because my job is to support the vision, help bring it to life. Someone wrote this, someone created something. I'm just there to bring their vision to life into the way they want it, whether it's visual, whether it's audio. to the best of my capability to stay in line with their vision, because I might have an idea, but if, again, I didn't write this character, we'll have conversations. And a lot of times they say, you know what, Jen, that's a really interesting point. I never thought about it, because sometimes you're so close to your project that you just, especially if you've been writing for years, right? You've been having this idea and really brainstorming it, and to be so close.
Yeah.
And then someone comes in and says, what's interesting? I read this character like XYZ, or I thought it was like this. And they're like, huh, that's really interesting. So I think it's a really fun collaboration effort as well. Everything in entertainment, whether it's audio or visual, is such a team collaboration effort. And that's what makes any sort of storytelling so beautiful and important. And it does take a long time. You can't just hit a button and things are done, whether it's sound, whether it's music, whether it's editing. Everything takes talent and time and effort. And
Absolutely.
It's we live in this I want to say Amazon delivery world or Netflix world. Like I need to watch more and more and more. Why isn't there? It's like thousands and thousands and thousands of hours and jobs, months and years for your 30-90 minute situation. There's an appreciation that goes with something. You may not like something personally someone does, but anything that, is broadcast or, streaming or on an, listening to on a podcast, whatever it is, if personally I don't like it, I still applaud that someone took the courage and put together the team to get it out there. And you have to applaud everything.
It takes a lot. Yeah. It takes a lot of work. Again, my mind was blown when I got to see, behind the scenes of how a film was put together with the sound.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. They're like, yeah, this couldn't exist this way if there was no sound in this film and no music playing that are pivotal to certain scenes. And sometimes they'll have sometimes I've seen them on the Blu-ray collections, but there are times where they cut out like the music and they'll cut out the sounds in the scene to play the scene to show you how different it is. And then they'll say, and this is the scene with everything added in. And it's mind blowing. It's like, wow, like that wouldn't be scary or that wouldn't be exciting if these elements were not in there.
Exactly. Music is so important. And, the people like music supervisors are really an important asset and a very important, excuse me, crew member. And we're one of the few positions that are there from development through post-production. So, I've been on films for years, right? And when they finally come out and, we are such an important crew member, we deserve to be treated like everyone else and to have, the same thing. Right now we're trying to unionize, to be completely honest, because we don't have the same rights as our coworkers, right? So whether, that's payment schedules, payment protections, pension, healthcare, meanwhile, people that we work with, they're taken care of and we're not treated the same. So it's really important that, as people watch media, these are people's livelihoods and their craft. And for us, for music supervisors, we are a pivotal, an important crew member. And we really are creative and business and storytelling. And it's very important that we have what our fellow crew members have, right? So it's, think about those things whenever you're listening or watching about the craft that goes into it. I know you do editing for your podcast. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is. And I understand that, for someone that does the editing and everything like that, I understand. I always, especially applaud people who do put these things together. In something that you said earlier about people are like, why isn't there more and more and more? Well, you know how long it takes. Okay, they if they're filming something, they might be doing it for 30 days, 60 days, 3 months, but then there's post-production and that takes longer than the filming process most times. Because they're putting things together and they have to make everything work. So they have to marry everything. It's okay. So we did the acting, and we got to marry the sound to the scenes. We have to marry the music to the. It's
You have to
and
edit it.
you
Sometimes
have to, yeah,
sometimes the way it was shot, or sometimes a performance choice doesn't work.
right,
So you have to figure out, maybe the story is going to change a little bit. Maybe we get rid of the scene. It takes a city, not a village, a city,
yeah,
to through all aspects of creation.
yeah, absolutely. And I see that, and that's what gives me a lot more appreciation for the mediums and the things that I watch and listen to. I'm like, this is, this is brilliant, and I'm always thinking about the people behind. And I think that's why they, even started doing like behind the scenes type of things,
Mm-hmm.
to see everything that kind of goes into it. Nowadays, you see actors, before they run credit to themselves, they'll thank the crew.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you're seeing that happening a lot more, whereas it didn't before. But people are now realizing that it's not just the actor making the film.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's so many different people involved, and it's I don't know. I love the collaboration with it, and I'm really excited for the world to hear Hollow's Bend, to hear this really fun story, and just we need a lot more happiness in the world, I think, and to be
Absolutely.
able to give something to the world, and to help them, and to let them create the story in their mind instead of just watching all the time.
Yeah.
That they can, maybe find something within themselves, their own story that they can relate to. Makes me really excited. And also, just, to create a sonic universe like this is so much fun, and also challenging, right? Because, even in the audio space, because I do have music and sound experience, does not make it easier, because at the end of the day, as a listener, do you feel that, right? And sometimes you're just like, oh my goodness. Like, I always make the joke, people, you see something, it's like they open a curtain at a store, right? Well, you have a visual aid. How is that in the sound world, right? So when you're looking at a script, or having to break down a script that you read, I could say this isn't clear to a listener because there's no visual media, right? And they're like, well,
Right.
no, it's really important. I'm like, again, let's talk about this. How would you convey that on a sonic point? Because we don't have a visual media, and a lot of people, especially a lot of people, are just, they go to the sound space thinking it's the exact same as the visual space, but it's really, really not. And even the
Definitely.
writing is different. The
Yeah.
writing is completely different for the audio space versus the visual media. So I think a lot of people, are like, oh, if I can do it for visual, I can do it for audio. And I was like, go ahead and try, but really understand what this medium is, and how it's different, and how it's similar. And I think if you work in the audio space, you can learn from the visual media people, and visual media people can learn from the sonic people. I think it's a great collaboration that can happen, but it's really important to understand the different storytelling mechanisms, how they're similar, how they're different, and how they work together.
How difficult is it? What is the most difficult part about the process of bringing a story to life that is not visually connecting to the audiences, but just through sound? What's that process like for you, as far as the difficulty level?
I think besides, sometimes the writing doesn't really work for the audio, so you have to figure out either, like, if you can rewrite it. Sometimes you get brought in when it's already been written and you have everything, or it's been recorded. I also find sometimes performance, right? If you don't have experience with acting with your voice, it's very different, because every word has an intention. Uh, I noticed this a lot of actors when I'm watching content. It's kind of funny because, just working the different medias, someone be like, oh, this person would be great for audio. And I'm like, have you noticed their acting's all in their face? They don't know how to use this tool, the voice, right? And if you're just like, hey, like, what does that say to you? What does that say to you?
It's
Right? But if
yeah,
you're like, hey, I'm tired, right? Hey, how's it going? But if there's no body language, because when we talk, we use our hands, we use our body language versus our voice. So
Yeah.
that's kind of sometimes the struggle, especially when listening to takes, because as you know, when you work with amazing directors, they get what they can out of the actors. But when you're putting it together, you're just like, oh, I wish that actor just did a little bit, or like, this is the best we can do. We can't change it, right? It's set in stone. Whether it's the, hey, this is my other thing, is when we talk, we do a lot of things with our mouth. We don't know what we're doing, but the microphone picks it up, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're an audience member and you're listening, you don't want something strange in your ear because you're not going to listen. It's going to be distracting. And a lot of people don't realize that. So I think the biggest, I'd say, I wouldn't say struggle, but the biggest hurdle is definitely being able to work with actors and to get those things for this medium. Because a lot of them do this, or I've noticed a lot of actors that they want to go into audio, that maybe they should start taking voiceover classes to learn how to do this. You can always tell when you work with a voiceover actor versus maybe a visual actor.
Yeah.
And visual actors are great, especially when it's like, oh, brought to, you see some name that people are going to click and listen. But then they're like, that was kind of weird. It's because sometimes they don't know how to use this instrument. And I think for a visual actor, learning how to work in the audio space will make you such a stronger visual actor as well, because you know how to use your entire body to tell a story.
Yeah.
So the biggest hurdle, I think, is definitely actors. They also don't realize the breathing. Sometimes, if you have the way your body is with breathing, the microphone picks it up, and you can't, there's only so much you can do in post, right? And then also it's just all these different things that people don't even think about. Also, how are you sitting and recording? Are you standing? If I'm supposed to be running and talking, using your body to be like, okay, guys, did you just see that my that guy get hit by a car? Oh my God, doing that versus like actually running and then having breaths, right? Being like, but then you have to recover.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard work. It's not that easy. People don't realize how easy. It's not easy. They're like, oh, I could do voiceover. I'm like, in some ways, it's harder than doing that, because a lot of people be like, they just rely on their body language, but you can't do that in audio. No one can see you, right? That's why we recorded with no cameras on. So we would do, rehearsals with, and then we do rehearsals with no cameras on. And then my director, who's fantastic, she would say, okay, how did that feel? And they just be like, I noticed the difference between camera on and camera off. So if you're thinking of working in the audio space, whether you're a producer or director, or maybe you're an actor who wrote a script, I say if you have a story to tell, you don't need permission. You don't need a Netflix deal. You don't need a Spotify deal. You don't need any of these people to give you permission to create content to get your story out. We live in a beautiful world where you can upload everything to Spotify and Apple and everything. You don't need a deal with someone.
Right.
If you have a story, get it out. If you are someone who maybe wrote a script and it's for the audio space, do it yourself and put it out. We, Hollow Spends through Moonwake, and we're an independent. We're not backed by a big studio. We're not backed by anything. We have a story to tell, and we're doing it, and we're putting it out. You can really do anything nowadays, and I say don't ask for permission for those things.
I think that's a great lesson for some people. I know quite a few people who have independently put some things out, podcasts, stories, and shows that are in the sound medium. And it's like, you know what? You can just put things out. You can load things up. You can do your voice. A lot of programs allow you to upload things and put them out there, and then you'll get an audience. People will come and listen, and they'll watch. And
you know what I say? What's the worst that happens? You put your creation in the universe. The worst that happens is you tell your story. That's the worst that happens. The best that happens is, the moon, right? The absolute worst that happens is your family and friends listen to it. You have, just nowadays, just like over, 200 listeners, or whatever. The worst that happens is that you put together a project, an amazing team, an amazing project, and had a voice and had a point of view, and you released it. That is the worst that happens, because sitting on dust, just sitting on your shelf, you saying, I have this great idea and this great story, but I don't have a deal, or I don't have this or that, that's just you standing in your way. The worst that happens is you created something that you're proud of. That's the worst that happens. And I think people just get in their head. I say that all the time. I said, what's the worst that happens? You put something out there and you could say, I created something from start to finish that anyone can access. That's the worst that happens.
It's not so independent now, but a really good example of this was when they were going to do Deadpool. The studio that they wanted to get a deal from was like, no way. They didn't think it would make it. They didn't think that people would like it. Well, he and I think the director at the time he was working with, they shot like an independent feature of Deadpool doing some stuff and leaked it on the internet, and it like exploded. Studio came calling, hey, we might be able to put this out after all.
Exactly. It's the perfect example. And in the audio space, I know that big production companies and networks and studios are looking towards audio storytelling as kind of development money. And they're looking for stories that go to audio first to adapt. A great example is Homecoming, right? Homecoming was an independent audio story that built traction, became a big thing, and then became a TV show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a perfect example of sound is the fish tank, right? The fish tank is in the audio space. It became its own character and its own sound. And then the TV show, it was there again. Yeah. So it's amazing about, characters don't have to just be a person. They can be a sound. They can be anything.
Absolutely. I can, and the thing is, I can easily see something like this turning into television down the line.
You know what? I would love that. That would be,
it feels
that's my dream. I'm not going to lie. That is a dream for everyone. Especially because, as I mentioned, there's a hole in the content space right now for content like this. We grew up watching X-Files and Buffy and all those amazing shows. And this kind of fits into that hole of things that are missing currently. There's a lot of really good young adult shows out there, but they might be their storytelling is a little bit different than ours. And there's a lot of different types of people out there, a lot of different types of personalities and different things. And, I'll be honest, if I was a young adult now, I don't think I would be able to find myself in any of the young adult shows. I mean, I'm a giant young adult fan and I watch them, and, I'm in my late 30s and I just look at it, I'm like, yeah, but I was like, if I was 15, there's no way. Versus, looking at, like Gillian Anderson's one of my idols. Scully was one of my idols. Seeing her growing up, there is no Scully, there is no Buffy, there is no those different types of shows that, back then I found space in, and I found my on-screen character. Nowadays, I watch these shows and I love a lot of these shows as fans, but I'm in my late 30s. It's a very different point of view than someone who's like 15 to, whatever. I wouldn't have been able to find myself. I think that's why Glee was such a big hit, is because those characters, people found themselves
related to.
They related to them. So I'm hoping that I can give a gift to those different audience members that don't see themselves in content currently. That is my hope, that I can give them a gift to find themselves, hear themselves, and hopefully be seen one day.
Every once in a while you get a gem that just comes out, and it's so beautiful. I just the sound of this series and the description of everything that's going on feels like this could be on television, and I think that's what's beautiful about it. You can absolutely do this in visual platform, and seeing things come from the audio background, from podcasts and from story plays like this, it's always nice to see them like bring these to other mediums.
Exactly. And What's really amazing about the story as well, it's an original idea.
Yeah.
It's 100% an original idea. These young writers, Abigail and Rachel, they had an idea and they sat and they worked on this idea for years. They put so much thought into these characters, into these stories, into everything. And taking Hollow's Bend, what their child is, Hollow's Bend is their child, and to be able to bring it to life in a media into a radio play. And we made the decision not to do episodic for podcasts and to turn it into a radio play because it is a nod back to the old storytelling mechanism that was in America. You turn on the radio and it'd be an audio play. And that's how we structured this into an audio play. So it's not just by episodic. It's not, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. It's an audio play. Just like back in the 50s, like I mentioned, you turn on the radio and you'd sit down as a family or sit down with your friends and you would have this entertainment. So it's also a nod back to, a different type of storytelling. I love the podcast space, but it's all episodic. I wanted to do something that was a nod back to, again, my theater background. Abigail and Rachel also have a theater background. So it is, back to the theater background, back to the audio background, and just to give a nod to where we came from as storytellers.
I do, it seems like one of those takes you back to those early like 90s type of vibe. Like
90s,
one of the
2000s, 90s, early 2000s, sitting back, like,
I remember all of those when it was WB17 or
yes. Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. I still call it WB sometimes.
Yeah.
People stare at me, they're like, I'm sorry. And I was like, yeah, okay, I know how old you are.
Yes.
Little frog with the hat.
Yes. Yes, it was great. But they had like the best like teen dramas and
they had the
series.
best dramas and series and
that lasted.
Yeah, I miss those shows. I miss them so much. I hope to make one day. To go back to the old school roots.
Yeah, it's so hard. I feel like I feel like this could be one of those, and
I do too. I really feel in my heart. And when I met these young writers and entrepreneurs, and just be part of their team, and we work so well together as partners. And I think that's really important, to have your team as partners and to also believe in things. I make the joke pushing the boulder up the hill, but really it's a marathon, not a sprint. And just, I really believe in the story. I really believe in the story, in the writing, in what I do, in the team. I really believe in this team. And I think it's gonna be something special. And I think it's going to give joy to people, which is, one of my main things I love to do, is bring joy through content, is to tell stories, whether it's sonically, whether it's visually and sonically, working with different writers and creators and directors and all those different things. That's my happy space, and I want to share that with the world.
Awesome. What do you hope people take from this adventure?
I hope that they take from this adventure that you can be who you want to be, and no one needs to tell you who you are, and it's okay to be who you are. I was the theater nerd in high school. I still am a theater nerd. Nothing's changed. And, I'm proud of that. I was proud of that in high school as well. I'm very fortunate to say that I believed in who I was, and it was okay that, maybe I wasn't the cool kid or whatever. That didn't matter. And I love that in the current world we live in, things have changed since we were younger, but sometimes it goes the other way. So I really hope that people take from this that you can be friends with who you want. Also, be curious. Be curious of what's going on around you. Be curious about, just be curious. That's also a thing, if you think about this, is they're investigating something together, as a Scooby-Doo gang. And they're curious, and they do the research, and they are stepping out of their comfort zone on things. And it's going to be a wild, fun adventure that's filled with a lot of love, a lot of heart, a lot of laughs. You're going to love Andres. He's hilarious. He's it's just so funny, just where he takes you, and the different the different layers of the audio storytelling that you actually don't see a lot in audio storytelling, breaking the audio fourth wall, right? Breaking the different walls that you don't really hear in audio very often, we are doing with this. So we are being curious, right? We're leaning into the curiosity as well. So I think it's going to be a really fun, adventure, and a really fun thing. You're going to laugh. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're just going to have all the different emotions. And it's something you can do. You can just go to the park on your commute, whatever, or, get people together and do an old fashioned storytelling, right? Turn it on, grab your food, grab your drinks, enjoy time together. I also hope it brings people together.
Awesome. Can you tell people when this is being released and where they can find it?
Of course. So we will be releasing in September, in the fall. We're going to, right around Halloween. We got a little bit of spirit action going on. So around the fall and Halloween, you can go to moonwakepictures.com, as well as on Up Your Geek. There'll be a pre-save code on there as well. So you can just scan it. As soon as this drops, you can just scan it. It will be on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, every place that you can listen to your audio. It will be there. You can just click. It's free. Just click and listen.
Thank you. Thanks for talking with me.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks for getting this out there. I'm excited about it, and I'm sure that once this gets out to people, they'll just eat it up.
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, guys. This has been Jennifer Smith on Up Your Geek Spotlight here, music supervisor for the upcoming Hallows Ben, and
also producer.
So producer, yes. And again, thank you for coming on. Everyone, when this drops, go and listen to it. I'm sure it will be a really great show. Show it some love and support.
Thank you.
Hey there, freaks and geeks. If you like this content and would like to view more like it, please visit us on all of our social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also visit us on our YouTube page, /UpYourGeek, and you can visit upyourgeek.com, where you can experience a new standard in geek pop culture and entertainment media, because no matter what fandom you're passionate about, we have it waiting here for you. Ready, set, up your geek.